We are on the giving gift right now. Woohoo, woohoo. I'm excited about this one. You're going to discover that as we go through these outlines that maybe not everything speaks to you because everybody has a different range of how they connect and what their personality types are, how intense they are, or how docile they are in their gift, whatever. So don't feel like just because it's on the outline means you have to be that way or you must not be a giving gift or a prophecy gift or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's just more of a general observation of how we're wired, how we express and how we receive information. And it's supposed to just be a helpful tool to serve you, to help you learn how to grow and function in a healthy way and be healthy in your relationships too. So with all that said, Romans 12, verse 8, the last part of this verse then says, if you have the grace gift of giving to meet the needs of others, then may you prosper in your generosity without any fanfare. So this is read from the Passion Translation. And again, we kind of talk about how each gift has like a key that brings about the most success for that gift. And so as Paul has written this out, we see a key kind of attached to each gift. And so for the giving gift, it says, prosper in your generosity without any fanfare. So the giving gift has been named the metal detector gift because it's not just about giving and impartation, although the word giving in the Greek does mean to impart something. But the giving gift is also about the unique function to be able to see hidden resources, to be able to impart that to people. They have an unusually strong way of being able to perceive resources to meet needs in various circumstances.
Yeah. So like for a prophecy gift is always looking for the hidden thing. And a lot of times, they're looking for that hidden thing from a spiritual thing and things like that. The giving gift, not that it's not spiritual, but the giving gift is really able to find that, the hidden things, the things that someone else may walk by and not even see an opportunity or a thing, that they can just see that. And it's like, it just is like, oh my gosh, this is just right out there. And they can just like basically supernaturally see things like that.
They're kind of like a magnet. They have supernatural favor. So oftentimes a giving gift is going to be a person that is able to attract wealth and growth and increase and generate income and generate resources in ways that somebody else would say, I didn't even know that was there. Or when I was looking at that, that's not what I saw at all. And so there are two people could be doing the same work in a field, and a giving gift is going to have a supernatural ability to create something and increase it and multiply it and generate in a unique supernatural way, because it's the way they're gifted. It's the grace that's on their life to attract wealth, to attract resource, to attract things to impart in order to meet needs. Now, we're going to talk about it in the general terms of wealth and material creation, because for the most part, you're going to see a giving gift kind of flourishing in that area, but it doesn't mean it's limited to that by any means necessarily.
There's someone that I'm thinking of that I know that it seems as though that like everything that he does, there's like a business opportunity that comes out of it. It's like he sees.
It's like the Joseph anointing, in the Bible, and everything he touched prospered. And that's what the Lord said. Like that was the gift that he had, was to make everything prosper. And it's a beautiful gift. It's a gift that is such a blessing to the body of Christ and to the world. In Deuteronomy 8:18, it says that it is God that gives us the ability to create wealth. And so we know that the grace for this gift comes from the Lord. It isn't because the person is super special and they're better than everybody else or whatever. It is just simply the grace that is on their life. It also doesn't mean that you can't increase if you're not a giving gift. It just means a giving gift has a supernatural grace to do it with very little effort to do so, really. They just see it. They're attracted to it. They can find it. It's like how they think. They just are thinking in terms of networking creating, generating, and finding that resource.
Yep.
So
that's really good. My I operate relatively high in this. Is for my third highest, but yeah, I connect with. And again, I think this is to your point. Like, there's a lot of things that I connect with on kind of the typical giving gifts if it's really high. And there's things that I'm like, maybe.
Yeah.
But like,
and of course, it's your number 3. So maybe someone who has a number 1, like high, 90% giving gift is going to say, wow, this is totally me, in every way. But then for somebody, maybe it's your number 3 or whatever, and you kind of relate to it a little bit. Again, you're going to find that on varying scales with all the gifts.
Yep. So one of the things she mentioned was networking, and that's one that I personally can relate with. Like, I love connecting dots and connecting things together and seeing if there's some opportunity.
People with the resources that they need.
Yep.
And
I think I just, for whatever reason, I just get a kick out of that. And so I'll sometimes ask questions for people to kind of like unpack some things to see if I can find a way to connect. Yeah. And sometimes, because you're not super high in that, so sometimes you're like, I don't understand why that question matters. What's the point in that? And I was like, well, but based on the answer to this, it could connect to this, which could connect to this person, and then I can connect the two of them, and it'll be amazing.
A giving gift might be someone that would say something like this: I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy that could do that for you, right? Because they're networkers. They know a guy who could do everything. And so if you got a need, they know who could fix that for you. They know who could fill that for you. If you have some sort of material need, they'll either give it off their back or they can tell you where you can find it, because a giving gift just has a grace to be able to see those things. And so under discover and impart, really discovery and impartation are the 2 pivotal things that operate in this gift. And that's kind of why it's called a metal detector, is because it's able to find the hidden things that maybe not everybody else would see. They can discover, and then they have the gift to impart it. And so you're going to find that these people are typically very generous people. If you just say, wow, that's a really nice, sure, you can have it, take it. They're very generous. They release things easily. As a matter of fact, it's just part of their DNA and their desire to release things. If they have not given something away in a few days, it's probably killing them. They probably need to find somebody to give something to, because that's just how they function. They need to find somebody to impart something to. And so they can be very generous people. Also, you're going to typically find people of quality and excellence. If they give you something, it's most likely going to be a very nice quality thing, a nice quality item, or a quality impartation of something. They're going to give you their best. So we see this in the function of Christ when he turned the water into wine, or turned the bread and fish into multiple. He always did more than enough. He did the top shelf wine. He did more than enough for the people and the best quality of things, because he's such a giver. Christ was the ultimate giver. I mean, he gave the ultimate. He gave his life, because our need for salvation, he gave that to us with no fanfare about it, right? The Roman says to prosper in it without fanfare, meaning without needing to be tooting your horn and recognized and boasting about it and saying, look at how great I am, look at me, but being able to do it with the sincerity, a singleness of mind, saying, no, I do this because it's who I am and because it's who God is expressing through me, not because it gives me some sort of fanfare for it. And so Christ was the ultimate example of that. With the revelation of our inheritance, he was always revealing the hidden treasures to us, saying, this is what your inheritance is in me. I am the inheritance for you. And so if you look at some of these scriptures, I encourage you to study that and read that. He always connected us to heavenly reserves. And impartation was who he was, right? He would show the disciples many things, but it wasn't just to show them how cool he was, even though he was the ultimate, right? But Jesus did that so that they could see what they were capable of in that impartation of saying, here, it's yours now. What's mine is yours. And that's how openly giving God is with everything. What's mine is yours, because we're family. So that impartation was really expressed through his life. So they have a great networking gift. They're very strategic with resources. So a giving gift is going to be able to see what resources are available and be able to be very strategic with how that needs to be placed in order to increase. So they're investors. They understand return on investment. They aren't very flippant with the things that they spend or give away, but they know how to invest correctly. Along with their generosity, they're very much investors. So very intentional, strategic with their resources.
Yeah. Again, you guys probably all know this, but part of the reason why I bring these, like I'm about to say.
Well, what are you about to say?
I have a friend that I think operates really high in this. I'm not sure that, I don't know if he's taken this or not, but one that I'm thinking of is, like I almost can never, like spend any time with him without him giving me something, number one. And also like he truly views that, or me, which is part of the reason why like I always feel amazing around him, is that he always makes me feel like whatever it is that he's giving is because he sees the best in me. And if you think about like secret treasures and hidden places, especially within people, yes. Like I've seen him honestly just like pour so much, giving in every way, his time, his money, his resources, his words of affirmation, like give into people. You're like, I don't know about this dude. Like, I don't know that I would spend my time like pouring into this person. And he's like, no. Like, I just see that there's something.
And that's so, here. I mean, when you talk about some of the things that you connect with, that's very much part of who Justin is too, is as a prophecy or an exhortation gift. Sometimes I'm like, forget it. I'm not dealing with this person. And Justin is very good about seeing the best in people and seeing what they can be. As a matter of fact, that's the only reason why we got married and are married to today, because when we met, I was probably the roughest, like toughest version of myself. And Justin was able to see, and I remember when we talked, I don't remember when it was, but I asked him a long time ago, like, why did you even marry me? I just like, I can't understand how a nice mercy gift like you would ever tolerate the garbage that came from me, because I was so unhealthy and needed healing so bad. But I remember he said to me, I married you because I could see who you were becoming in God. I could see who God was calling you to be. And I wanted to see that person come out. And I believed that you were going to become that woman. And, for me, that is what brought me to life. And so a giving gift is so good about being able to find the gold in people, even when they are just like a mess. And the mud that's in front is easier to see. I think everybody can see the mud and the murk in people's lives. But a giving gift is so good about being able to see that gold and drawing that out and imparting something to them to bring that out. So the impartation, that's where it kind of comes when it's not just material things. The impartation can come by releasing something into a person to draw out the gold and the treasure from within them. And a giving gift is very good about that. So under strengths, and has a knack for locating undiscovered treasures and a grace to see value in seemingly worthless things. So somebody in a material way might go, well, that's garbage, throw that away. But a giving gift might say, hey, I could use this to increase this somehow. And in a person, same way. And forget that person, they're just worthless. And a giving gift would say, oh no, I see that person could be, I could see what that person could be someday. So
great encouragers.
Yeah. But number 3, let's talk about some of the weaknesses with the giving gift, because we all have imbalances. And so, number 3 on our outline.
So a tendency to take a hero complex, helping people outside of God's leading. So like saying, hey, I can come in and I can save this person. I can come in with my resources or I can come and save this person. And again, like we've seen even with mercy gifts or some of the other ones, you got to be careful to not become that really Jesus, in your ability to encourage or ability to help this person. You got to make sure that you're not operating outside of that role.
Definitely.
So really good. Also struggles with boundaries. Again, we saw this with the mercy gift as well. But you making sure, again, when you see something, you have the ability to be like, hey, I can just come here and solve this problem. Like, this is not a big deal. I know it seems like a big deal to you, but with all of my resources, I can just come in.
If giving gifts often have so much resource at their fingertips in some way, shape, or form. And there's a lot of needy people and a lot of people who don't necessarily feel the motivation to grow up in certain things. And so if they know they can come to you and you're just going to give them what they need, then you have to have boundaries to know when it's time to share or impart what you have, or what seed God has given you, when to sow seed, when to give seed, when to consume the seed for yourself. It's really about understanding the wisdom of that leading over the desire to just give. It's a need, you can fill it, just do it. Because that's not always the case. The will of God or the leading of the Spirit should always be first. Mm-hmm. Another one, letter D, it says, look what I built complex. Kind of like, again, Romans 12:8 says, prosper in your generosity without fanfare. So being careful not to feel like, wow, look what I did. Look what I turned this out of this, whatever. It's okay to be confident and to recognize that what you are doing is important and valuable. But it kind of reminds me of our president, because I do believe that Donald Trump actually has a giving gift wiring, a very high giving gift. He shows very many signs of this gift. And one of the things people accuse him of often is being braggadocious and doting on himself about all the great things that he's doing. Now, a giving gift is just going to be very verbal about how they're building things and how they're succeeding in the resource of building things. And so that's not a bad thing. Now, somebody who's not a giving gift might go, that's just so like ostentatious and braggy. I don't know why he says that kind of stuff. But then there is a line that you can cross and be very arrogant about how you built all this stuff. And, it reminds me of like the Titanic. For example, the creator of the Titanic, the captain of that ship, was quoted saying, not even God himself could sink this ship. And so then, of course, it went out and sunk. But what the lesson in that is that it is the Lord ultimately that puts all things together and holds all things together. We are merely humbled and blessed to be a part of what he's doing, and he gives us the stewardship of those things. So Deuteronomy 8:18, we put that next to letter D, is remember that it is God who gives you the ability to create wealth. We're all going to do great things in this world. We all have great purpose, and we should have confidence in that. And we should have boldness in that. But there also should be such a level of humility to know that without God, these things are not even close to possible or sustainable. So just be really careful about, use your confidence, and don't forsake who you are just because people can't handle the way you communicate your building projects and your resources and being able to communicate that, but also be really careful that you're not getting that sort of look what I built in kind of arrogant complex.
And that goes right into the blind spots and things. Mm-hmm. So also, again, like we had talked about, just because you have the ability to give it doesn't mean you should give it.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. Especially like you talked about monetarily, where you're, I think of, I have some clients, I think you see this a lot with kids, or can see this with kids. And so it's on the last part of this, but, especially adult children, I have a lot of my clients that are in their 60s. And so they'll have kids come to them at, 40, 45 years old and say, oh man, I have this issue. Can, and they just go to mom and dad to fix it because that's just what they've done. And at some point, mom and dad, I talk to them and they're like, I know I probably shouldn't, but it's my kid, And so just because you have the ability to solve the problem, to bail this person out, doesn't mean necessarily that you should. Because if it's outside of God's will, then we shouldn't do that. Sometimes you need to figure out the tough stuff and just pull your pants up.
And God's will, or just a simple discernment of saying, if I continue to give and impart these things to this person, I'm enabling them because they're being manipulative or lazy, or they're not taking responsibility for their life. And so letter C there, the blind spot is that you can tend to be an enabler of people who should be taught how to fish, not necessarily given fish. There is a difference in seasons with people, when to give them fish and when to teach them how to fish for themselves. So just make sure that you have that discernment in the temperance portion of this. And that's really what it says, is to learn the discernment and the wisdom to know when to impart and share things and when to not. Because that's really going to save you a lot of painful heartache and issues in your relationships as well.
Mm-hmm. So when you're tired or unhealthy, again, go get rest, right?
Yep. Sleep.
But what you may tend to do is retreat out of offense.
Yep. A giving gift will tend to get really offended easily offended, because their value or their desire a lot of times is to connect through the impartation. And so if they're high output and they're not getting rest, or they're not healthy, they're going to tend to take people's resistance to their impartation or pulling on them too much as rejection or usury. And they're going to become very offended and tend to just retreat away from people and sort of get that bitter, like, I'm not helping anybody anymore because I'm taken advantage of and people don't appreciate me and that kind of thing. You can tend to feel like a vending machine after a while. So make sure that you're getting your rest and being healthy, so that you don't feel like you have to be done with people in order to thrive in life.
Right. So maturing in temperance, we talked about a lot of this, but, strong in discernment, yes. Really big, keep a humble heart.
Yep.
So that as you're filling these needs, that you don't look at it and be like, hey, look at how amazing I am, right? Keeping that.
Because
that
let me
heart.
tell you something. Sometimes when you give things to people, they don't really care. I have had where, like, you spend a lot of time giving a gift or being very quality or getting the best thing and you're so excited about it. Or, hey, I know this person needs $500 to pay their rent, and so I'm going to give it to them because I have it. And people just maybe don't express their appreciation or communicate the way that you would hope they would. And so when you are temperate and doing it for the right reasons and being generous, prospering in that generosity with no expectation of fanfare, that kind of thing is not going to disturb you or make you feel rejected. Well, they don't appreciate it, so I'm not going to do it again. Or right. I can't believe I gave you all this and you didn't even say thank you, or you didn't send me a thank you card, or a lot of those attitudes can kind of show up in a giving gift because they're very proud of the way that they impart, and they find life in being able to impart and make people feel like their needs are met. And so growing in temperance is just to stay humble, knowing that it isn't yours to give. God gives and he flows through you and he meets people's needs. And as long as you can kind of stay in that zone, we're like, hey, God, I'm happy to be a part of this. I'm increasing in my personal life and watching other people increase through me, and that's good enough for me. I think that you're going to find a lot of healthy balance and peace in giving and impartation.
Yeah, one of the analogies that you've used, and it isn't necessarily for this, but I think it's a good connection, is an analogy, and I actually think it's a vision really that the Lord gave you, is that when you think about in the game of baseball, that you have the pitcher, and the pitcher goes and releases the ball, and realistically, the pitcher doesn't have anything to do with whether the batter hits the ball or not. The only responsibility the pitcher has is to do his or her preparations and to release at the right time based on what kind of pitch they're trying to do. That's it. Once that ball leaves the hand, it's not up to them anymore.
Right.
So it's the same kind of deal when we think about being discerning in our giving and how they respond and whether we're rejected on those things. So like if the Lord says you to give. If the Lord says you to impart, and how they receive it, there's nothing you can do about that. That has honestly more to do with that person and their insecurities and their what they're doing. And
honestly, that goes for every gift, right?
It goes for every gift.
I have prophesied over people who were like, yeah, no, that's not really, no, that doesn't resonate, or that's not, you're way off. And then 6 months later, they come back and go, oh my gosh, what you said, I came to my mind when I was doing this because it actually happened, or I actually realized that it's true.
Or even else, and you can see this in really any of the gifts as well, is that you'll say something like, no. And then 3 or 4 months later, they came back and like, I had this revelation. You're not going to believe this. That blah, blah, blah. And
They're
you're
like,
I
just figured this out. And you're thinking, I told you that like 4 months ago and you didn't want to hear anything about it. So, say all that to say
that. She does that to me all the time, by the way. I was like, yeah, I don't think that's it. You're way off, honey. And then 3 months later, I'm like, so I was having this conversation.
This great idea. I just had this epiphany.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
A lot of times I'll come home and I'll like have this great conversation with a mentor of mine. And I was like, this is what I'm doing. And she's like, yeah, dude, I just said that like 3 months ago. I was like, I don't remember that.
Because you didn't want to hear it. But I mean, I think that's for any gift. And so, any gift that you have or anything you have to release to the world or to the people around you, they may or may not receive it. It doesn't mean that you don't release it. Your responsibility to release doesn't come for your identity. It comes from your identity.
So good.
So you release what's in you, not because people are going to give you it was on point. That's exactly what I needed. I received that. You're also going to get people who are going to say, yeah, I don't really want to hear it. Teaching gift, I'm sure you are used to that. People are like, I don't really care. I don't want to hear it. Whatever it is. But if you have the need to release something in you and you do it by faith and obedience, then that's all you can do. And a giving gift is the same way. So let's look at enemies' tactics real quick.
Yeah, this first one is uber important, right?
A giving gift is going to get beat up in the church, in the religious church, I should say, not the body. The true body of Christ, kingdom-minded people will understand this. But the religious church is not kind to giving gifts,
right?
Unless they need money.
Yeah, it's very
now when they
strange.
Need money for building projects
the first ones
or whatever. Giving gifts are the first people that are called for those.
Isn't that
those
interesting? Isn't that interesting? The super religious, the people in the church that are all about just whatever's going on in the church and be like, oh, you're worldly if you're doing anything in the marketplace. And we've all come across
materialistic. Money is the root of evil.
Right. They'll quote all these scriptures that are out of context, and things like that. And so those are the tactics of the enemy, that you start believing that you start believing that you're unspiritual, that you're materialistic, that you're greedy and all those things. But here's the deal. If you're a giving gift, I mean, you see those unseen things, and wealth is just going to come. There's just going to be part of what happens.
There's nothing new under the sun. God, if Deuteronomy 8:18 says God is the one who gives you the ability to create wealth, it isn't a surprise to God that you have a grace on your life to create and generate income and wealth and resources in this world. It just means you have to be careful not to let it rule over you, and you can't be of the world in that, because there's also giving gifts they make buco, generate lots of stuff, and they consume all of it in inappropriate or worldly ways. Now, that is out there, but you can't lump all of that together. A building project or a fundraising project, they're likely going to call the giving gifts, not just to give, but to go out and generate income from people, because giving gifts are really great. The church has been really great at prostituting this gift, because they can get up in front of a crowd of people and give unction to give, because that is a gift that they have. They have a gift to seek the treasure in people and also help them see why generosity and giving is so important. That could make a giving gift become very bitter with the church. And so if you have that sort of hurt in your life, I really encourage you to get healing and prayer for that, because that does happen often. Unfortunately, I'm really disappointed to have to admit that, but it's true. It does happen. I've seen it happen to people a lot. But we'll get off of that topic. I think we were a little fiery about that part. Wisdom in marriage, I would say one of the number one things you want to make sure you have in your marriage as a giving gift is unity in what to share and what not to share. So a giving gift is going to want to give everything away. Maybe not everything, but they're going to want to give things away a lot. So make sure your spouse is on board with you giving what you give. Don't let your spouse come home to a bank account that was at several thousands of dollars and now you're down to like a couple hundred because you just felt the unction to give something to a need that you saw without unity between the two of you, because that will be a number one.
We had a friend like that. She was just a giver. She loved to give and to bless people and whatever. And so her husband, who was in their marriage, you know, he kind of handled all the finances and things like that. And so like, he would be like, okay, here is kind of the dollars that we're going to do for your, you know, to buy groceries or whatever. And then be like, okay, here's kind of the monthly amount. And then like a week later, she'd be like, I'm out of money. And be like, well, what do you mean you're out of money? Like, we're only a week into this. And like, well, I came across so-and-so and I went to the grocery store and so-and-so didn't look like they could pay for the groceries or whatever. So I just bought them all, you know.
And then my other friend hasn't had a new purse in a while and she just mentioned, and so I just felt like I needed to buy her a new purse. So I just did that.
And he'd be like,
just wanting to fill the needs and create and just bless people. And that's a wonderful thing. But maybe with your spouse, you want to financially plan that out and say, okay, here's your pot of money to give away if you feel like you want to give it, or let's just talk about it first. A lot of times when we give, if we feel like the Spirit is pulling us to give on something in an amount, we'll always come together and say, what is the Lord telling you? What is he telling me? And typically we come straight to that unified place. Like, yep, that's what I was thinking. Often. Yep. So it's just a good idea to communicate and be in unity with your spouse. And of course, discern their emotional capacity. So wisdom in parenting then, or was there something else?
Yeah, no, I was also like, not only just financially, but as a connector, that as you're connecting and finding those needs and just in the world as we're operating, that you don't get preoccupied by just doing that,
right?
And again, kind of leaving your family behind. I think that's true for all of them, but again, that's that temperance of.
But because a giver is just so driven by finding resources and connecting needs to resources and filling all that space, it can be a very intense revelatory gift. And revelatory gifts like prophecy, or this giving gift, which is impartation, because you have to see what's hidden, can just be really overwhelming, and you can get really lost doing all the world's work, doing all the work, and then forgetting that your spouse needs the time to be discovered as well, and that your kids need time to be discovered as well. So be generous with your family.
That's an area that I've had to grow a lot in and still have a long way to go, is really creating those boundaries as far as like the mercy and, you know, my time and my resources and all of those things. I mean, I can get caught up, you know, being late for different things because I am, you know, imparting something or, you know, showing mercy to someone or whatever. And those are good things, but we always, I mean, a constant thing that I remind myself of and actually Rihanna does a good job reminding me, and I mean that in a good way, is like, remember that you work here too. Like, don't leave your family behind because of all of the things that you're doing. And those are good things. Those are things that the Lord is calling me to do, but I can't leave my family. I don't want to get there, look up and be like, okay, I did all these things that I felt like I was supposed to be doing. I
conquered the world. Everyone got what they needed. And now my family's gone because I didn't.
So it's a constant like reminder for me. I have to remind myself and
your family is such a beautiful mission field that God has given you. And it's important to keep your focus on that too. Yeah. So one last thing I'll say about parenting with the giving gift is be generous with your kids and teach them generosity. Teach them to be generous with what they have. Even if they're not a high giving gift, just teach them that and impart that wisdom to them. And then also, I'm going to just sort of plug Rich Dad, Poor Dad and just say, teach them how to generate and create wealth and resource for themselves to be self-sufficient. Maybe they're not going to be a high giving gift and be functioning that way, but a giving gift as a parent is such a treasure for kids to grow up understanding how resources work, how systems work, and how to make that work for them. Don't just be lost teaching everybody else and imparting it on everybody else, but teach your kids how to generate and create wealth and abundance and how to be a good giver and being generous with that, because those are two huge tools of the kingdom that are going to be great for them. We actually have our kids read. We just got done reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad for teens. That's what we had our kids working through in the Dave Ramsey course this year for a high school credit. So
cash flows game.
Yeah, cash flow game. So we do that often. We talk about it often with our kids because, money is just a major portion of how this world goes around. And so to teach them not to just move away from it, but how to use it well, how to create it, generate it, be generous, and let it flow through them so that God can use increase in their life in a big way. So
Right. That it not become your God.
Right.
Obviously. But it is at this point, you think about years ago, we were in an agronomic society. So they talked about, planting seeds and all the harvest there. It's a very agronomic society. Today, that's not our primary society. It is a monetary system. And so if the Bible talks so much about the economic system being of that time, I like to think that, Jesus was here now, he would talk about the economic system of this time, because it is part of this world and the keys and the resources that God has given us so that we can just continue to build
prosper
the kingdom
and
and bless
advance
people.
the kingdom. And absolutely.